Hello, I'm Liz Zorab and this is Byther Farm, and today I thought I'd tell you about my food forest. I started this food forest 2 years ago and put in the first few plants. So I put in this lovely apple tree which was transplanted from behind our greenhouse. And I put in some currant bushes and blueberry bushes and some Lycisteria formosa, which other people call, well, lots of different names, but pheasantberry is one of the very common ones. I put in a hedge of raspberries and some rhubarb. And I also created this small herbaceous border because I want to have some nice colour. I wanted to have some of my favourite cottage plants in here, and they're all great for helping attract pollinators. And in here I've put some rosemary, some chives and some other plants that have got edible flowers. And in these two old tractor tyres, which I wanted to find a way of recycling them, I've got some mint in this side. I actually don't use this mint, but I do love brushing past it. It's great for bees and other pollinators. The smell is just lovely. I brush past it in the summer mornings and it just releases that smell. It's really nice. And then on this side there is a buddleia which I hadn't intended on being here, and I popped it in. I'd healed a little seedling in here last year and it's done its thing. Well, do you know what? I'm quite happy for it to be here doing its thing. It has been covered in bees and butterflies and other pollinators ever since it started flowering, so I'm okay with that. There are also some ornamental grasses which I really like. They just add a bit of different colour and texture, and then also there's plenty of Nepetia, depending on how you say it. It's a catmint. Love the smell. Bees absolutely adore this. So as much as possible, where we've got flowering plants or aromatic plants, I'm also having ones that bees like. Plants like these currant bushes went in as just very small plants. They were about 8 to 10 inches high. I bought them at a local garden centre. They were in their cheap and cheerful section. They've done really well. In the 2 years that they've been in here, they've tripled in size. They've given us a lovely crop. And I'm really looking forward to see how they grow in the next few years. And in front here there are some self-sown marigolds, or the calendula. These are all over all over our garden. I really love them. I love the colour of them, and I've now started picking and drying the flowers, so they're becoming a really useful crop as well. This part of the food forest looks like a chaotic jumble. That's because it is. When I first started planting, I hadn't appreciated just how big and broad these raspberries would get. And I'm very happy that they have, because they've given us an amazing crop of very nice raspberries for the last 2 years. But I do need to think about quite how this arrangement works. So I've got a wildlife pond over here, and then in front of that I've put some decorative plants and things like borage, great for the bees, great to put the little flowers into ice cubes. And here is another one of my pheasantberry bushes. Really love these. They seed themselves everywhere. And ironically, I actually bought some seeds for this when we moved in, because I knew I wanted them in the garden, and pretty much as soon as I had some seedlings that were 3 or 4 inches high, some appeared in the raised beds as well, where the birds have obviously dropped their seeds. Very pleased. These are edible. Beginning to get a really good crop of those now. And down here there's an overspill bed of strawberries. And then in this bed we've got some herbs. So this is a red orich. Now obviously it's not very red at the moment. We've got a lot of seeds of it though. So I'll be collecting those seeds and saving those for future years. To be honest, it seeds itself very well. I really like it, and we don't even eat it. This is the odd thing, is, you know, it is, the leaves can be eaten like a spinach. I'm not that keen on the taste of them, but structurally I absolutely love them, and I kind of figure that over time Mr. J and I will get used to the taste and we will learn to love it. And here I've got a bronze fennel herb, which again has done really well this year. I've collected a lot of seeds from it. It's now got multi stems. It is a big strong plant. And at the far end there is a lemon balm, and this is part of a plant that came from my mother-in-law's home a few months before we moved here, and so I have very fond memories of that lemon balm coming from her garden. This is a young peach tree which I planted last autumn, so it's been in for a year, and it is a hardy peach, and indeed we had peaches from it this year. There were just 5. We were delighted. We're absolutely delighted. It is hardy. It came through our really awful winter and spring last year. It's done really well. It's survived then the very dry, hot conditions of the summer. So I'm really pleased with this. Oh, I want some more of these. And behind me here, this is a plum or a damson tree. Now I actually don't know what it is because I didn't put it in here. This great big tree. This is a self-seeder. It started growing not long after we moved in here, and when I first put the pallet fence down the side of the garden, it was maybe 8 inches high, and I thought, oh, that'll be okay. It's now got to be quite a big tree, and we might need to make a decision this year about whether we leave it there or whether we take it out. But there are several more that we can move to better places. Just here I have a honeyberry. Apparently the fruits are edible. I've got to say, last year there weren't very many. This year there were quite a few, and by the time I looked at them and thought, no, they're not quite ripe yet, the next day they obviously were, because the birds had about 90% of them. So I either need to cover it with some sort of netting, or accept that maybe that one is one for the birds. This cherry tree I'm really pleased with. It's one of the ones we planted very early on. So it's been in the ground for about 2 years now. It's grown about 2.5 feet in height, and very probably something like 5 feet across. It's looking great, and gave us quite a good crop this year, which I got to before the birds did, and I'm really pleased with it. There are a couple of branches I can see that probably need to be cut out because they're crossing and rubbing, but other than that, I love the shape of this tree. I love the fullness of it, but as you can see, it's very close to that damson, and sooner or later the damson's going to interfere with the cherry. It's certainly going to start blocking out some light, and I'm going to use some water and nutrients that I would rather went to the cherry tree. I'm sorry, damson, you really are going to have to be moved. And behind the cherry tree we have an apple. It has done really well. We've had some nice apples from it. So the first year I picked the apples off. I think there were only a couple. This year it's produced a few. It could really do with a prune, so I may bring the secateurs out and do a winter prune on this one. And then behind me, in the area behind me there are more apples, pears and cherries. There's also a quince tree, and there are also a couple of transplanted elderberry trees. This is a silver birch tree which was given to me by my daughter. It came by post and was about 8 inches high when we got it 2.5 years ago. I'm really pleased with just how well this has grown. I love its dappled shade. I like the lightness of them, and I also like the sound of the wind passing through the leaves. I think it just adds another dimension to the garden. So I'm very pleased with that. And then behind me here, this is one of the elderberry trees that my friend Jane and I transplanted. So this was just a couple of sticks of wood that were about mostly about this high, with one or two slightly larger bits, and we moved these, and I'm guessing, I think it was about a year ago, because I love elderberry, and we are very keen, when I say we, I mean Mr. J, is very keen on elderberry wine. It's really simple to make, so very pleased to have this. This has fruited really well this year, and although my intention was to pick all the berries on this tree this year, the birds had them, but that's because I had so many elderberries from our very large elderberry tree that's over in the duck area. So around the edge here, there's some more rose bushes and hazels and a rowan. And then this area will become, well, we can choose what it will become, and I have two feelings about this. I feel a bit daunted because it's quite a large area that we haven't done anything in terms of being productive with food yet. Well, yes, there is you, darling. You are beautiful, but I'm talking about growing plants, not growing birds. Yes, I am. Good chap. Yes. So I feel daunted, but I feel really excited. So we are starting to draw out on paper where we want pathways to go, and whether we want raised beds or plant stuff into the ground, and kind of get a feel of some of the potential here. I think that this area here would be superb to put a polytunnel on. Maybe that's one for the future, but I am bearing that in mind and not planting any more trees in this area. But when I come a bit forward to about where Big White is, hello boy, certainly from here onwards that way and all across that side, we can have as plants. So as you can see from overhead, it's a nice area. It's currently dissected into two by this fence, but this isn't a permanent fence. These aren't concreted in or cemented into the ground, they are just literally knocked into the ground. So I can very easily, says she. Between Mr. J and I, we can get this fence out without it being a problem. I also know that I want to put some sort of seating in the far corner there. There are 3 more silver birches there. I'd quite like to have a bench down underneath those. In the evening the sun goes down in that direction, so it would be really nice in summer evenings to be able to come and sit here and watch the sun go down behind the trees. I know that I want a path from there going across to the way that we naturally walk, route of least resistance in some way, because that is the one that will be used, and then from that I can then branch out other pathways to go round other beds. So Mr. J and I have a couple of months planning ahead of us. It's all very exciting, and I can't wait to show you as it develops. And so, wherever you are in the world and whatever you've got planned for today, I hope it's a good one. And I also hope you'll join me again next time.